Well, hi everyone. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for the invitation to speak today. Can you hear me fine? Yeah. Yes. Thank you for the introduction. I think it's on point with the look at in the definition of what is AI, what it means for different people, and how does that help us think about it. You already said a few words on SURF, but I just want to say a couple more things because it explains a bit maybe the way we look at technology and what to do with it. So we are the collaborative organization, meaning that we are a member organizations. We are owned by universities, research institutes, etc. And we try to support in everything IT related in the broadest sense of the term. So that includes, for instance, procurement, running the national supercomputer. That is the core of our services. We have also an association role, which is very important with AI, which is about knowledge transfer, trying to bring communities together, exchange about like the good practices. And I think the point that was made earlier also is on point about it's this feeling of we're all in this together, and if we work to solve them together, then we can find the best approach to it. And finally, and that's actually quite new and interesting, we have now what we call an innovation workspace, which means that as an IT organization, we realize that technological developments are so fast-paced that you need to create the space for experimentation, taking a step back to try and understand the implication of technology on research, on education, and try to understand how we should approach the support that we give to communities. So AI is one of them. So I'm the program manager for this one. But we have also quantum, for instance. We have edge computing, so a broad range of technologies. And AI is the one that's going to keep us busy today. I do want to highlight my colleague Bertine van Deze, who's leading our AI in education specific task force, but she was not available today, sadly, so I have the pleasure to be here in front of you. But you might be in touch with her in AI in education networks in the future if you attend such events. So I really like your introduction because indeed that's a central question for me about what is AI. Not so much to be pedantic about what is or it is not, but to highlight the kind of lens that different people take when they look at AI. So indeed, maybe originally, so early 20th century, AI was mostly maybe a quest for non-human intelligence and answering the question of, are we able to create an intelligence that looks human or maybe is even superhuman in its capability? So this has been, of course, taken up quite a lot by science fiction in general. I wonder how many of those you recognize. But that's only part of the story, right? So this is the very, maybe like a common thread throughout. It's about, okay, how can we push the boundary of intelligence? And if you hear the large corporations today, so ChatGPT, for instance, the CEO, Google, everyone, they tend to go a bit in this kind of narrative about, okay, well, it's about artificial general intelligence. It's about having maybe the perfect rational machine, which allows us to not have to make tough ethical decisions in certain situations. And all of those, of course, appear with education context, because we have to make sometimes choices where within an AI system, you might be able to remove yourself from that choice and put it on the machine. But another way to look at AI, and that's my most natural approach coming from a technical background, is, well, it's a set of methods and algorithms. That's the range of topic from an AI conference earlier this year. And the point here is that even within AI, even looking purely at the technical aspects of it, it's a very broad and diverse field. So when we talk about AI in general, and this generative AI is everywhere, we have to really remember that there are a lot of different methods that are not superseded by generative AI, but are part of a whole, and each have their own strengths to tackle certain kind of problems. And finally, AI is also very concrete in practice. So it's a set of very concrete products and services that impact everyone's life, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. Of course, there are some very important, dreams about accelerating medical research, providing new drugs with the help of AI systems. But of course, then there's the dependence about the bias potential bias in such systems. So the reason I brought all those up today is to hopefully kind of create some discussion later on as well about which lens do we use at what point, and what does it imply in the kind of solutions we're going to come with. So yeah, we need to be clear about what kind of problem we're trying to solve at which point and what's the best tool for that job. So the way we look at it at SURF that helped us a bit is also to separate between 3 different levels of applications of AI. So we look at what we call the micro level. So that's in the classroom, that's helping students or teacher individually. And that could be a tool that help them maybe have a sparring partner on some exercise, or maybe for the teacher to generate new material, for instance. So that's really at the individual level. But they're also very powerful tool at the meso level here, so at the institution level. And those tend to be a bit more concrete and maybe less problematic in a way, because it's about making more efficient organization, maybe more agile organization, where you have tools that help you maybe generate kind of schedules or reallocating of resources in a bit of a more agile way. And finally, something that we have to kind of clearly look at here is the societal push. Like sometimes change is not something that we do in the first person, like trying to improve some situation in the classroom, for instance, but there are changes in society that force us to adapt one way or the other. So that's how we split the different concerns about AI. So I'm going to go through some examples on the first 3 levels, and highlight some of the questions we ask ourselves when we discuss with our organizations in the Netherlands, the institutions, and when they ask us advice on, can I use this? How should I use it? What should I think about when I want to use certain applications like this? So at the classroom level, here are 2 examples, so Laneuville and Peruso. Laneuville is an application that claims to guide students navigating a complex set of requirements and resources. And as you prove yourself against some requirements, you can kind of navigate to the next best problem for you. So that's kind of a highlight in the direction of personalized education. And Peruso is a system to help you in your reading of academic paper, get a bit of a sparring partner about the questions you ask yourself and how to approach the paper and what the paper says, etc. And those can and are already used in certain institutions. But a question that we always think about asking is, okay, how do we ensure the quality of those tools? Do we need certifications? And those are not present currently. We would not think of having a teacher without a degree in the classroom, or maybe we should not have a tool without a certain certification in it that proves that it has certain quality that we think are good in the teaching process. An additional question is also trying to go 1 level below in terms of what is it that we're trying to solve by using those tools, and is that the best way to approach it? So we're trying to go away from the tool-driven approach to the domain-driven perspective of what is it that we're trying to achieve here. At the meso level, the Unit 4, for instance, is a kind of enterprise product trying to facilitate the operations of an organization. And this may be, again, the least problematic, because it's a bit more easier to think about how to reduce inefficiency in a system purely on an operational perspective. However, it asks the question also about, okay, why do we need to make institutions more efficient, and what is the trade-off when we do this? So in the rightmost 2 examples here, examples where, because of the changing ratio of students to teacher in many organizations, you start having a replacement, or at least adding workforce from kind of AI teaching assistants. So one is in Harvard. This is Jill Watson from IBM, where people start using this as a supplement in course to reduce the workload of human teacher assistants. So what does it imply to use those systems is, for me, an interesting question. And finally, those probably don't need any introduction, but it's the very heavy kind of societal push with the narrative of market drivers. So you have the Copilot from GitHub, where it really starts changing the way you think about what the software developer should be doing. And ChatGPT needs no introduction. And DALL-E is about kind of creating, generating images in a stunning way, to be honest. And what does it mean when those tools exist in the world? How does it change the education that we want to give ourselves and our society? And also, I think more importantly is about when we look at education productivity through the lens of those tools, how does that bias also our own perspective there? And I think that's something that's important, because that's not a reflection that those companies are going to do for us. So I think that's an interesting perspective to keep in mind. Now I wanted to share the kind of pattern we observe in the Netherlands, and I'm curious to see if it resonates with some of your new organizations here. But what we tend to see is that when you have a visible technological development, say ChatGPT, that is announced, very quickly you start having everyone almost having a informed opinion about what's going on, what it means for you, what we should or shouldn't do, and it really kind of fuels the news in general. And what we notice that it really creates this institutional fear about the reaction that we need to have with respect to that tool. So it kind of demands a reaction to it. Which means that then we try to organize a sector in terms of knowledge transfer, meeting maybe like this one, to discuss about, okay, how should we approach this, what should we or should not do. Then we also can create some policy, kind of longer term planning about this. But something we noticed is that because this was all triggered in a kind of urgency mindset and by a specific tool, it tends to color a bit the kind of discussion that we have or the kinds of solution that we come up with. So that's something that we've been trying to turn around a bit in the Netherlands, and something that we've been trying to push for, we call the proactive value-driven routes, is to try and help our institution really take ownership of the problem and be there to support them, so that once we have this discussion as field about education and research in a fast-changing world, what does it mean? Then the technology is a servant to that. What's the best way then to actually implement it? So in this kind of route, when a new important development comes out, then we are more ready to respond to it, because we know what we would like from tools. So we see if the tools make it or not. And as a sector, we are much stronger to then kind of negotiate or nudge certain tool one way or the other, because we say, well, thanks for the tool, but what we need is this. Can you please make it a bit different for us in certain aspects so we can use it efficiently in our institutions? So this requires a good understanding of the technology of it, and in the Netherlands that's what SURF helps provide, but also the ability to drive, we call here the kind of education-centered, teacher-centered innovation, where in every organization there's enough space for some activities related to what innovative education could look like, and that has to come from the teachers themselves. So what is the impact in the next 5 years? Well, I think it depends really who's driving that change. And an exercise that we've been doing at SURF, which I found quite interesting, and you have a QR code here if you manage to do it. I assume maybe the slides will be shared later, so you can also have the link there. We've done a report looking at what the future of the campus could be in 2030, 40, well, in the future, and trying to come up with different scenarios. Trying to see, being neutral towards the scenario, what could be happening and what would be the driver in those different scenarios, to provide a bit of a map and understand, okay, what is forcing what, and depending on where you want to end up, then be able to make decisions about some of those drivers. So I'm going to present just two. One is called inequality growth. It's a bit of a grim scenario, I'm sorry. In this one, it's a future in which large companies have taken over education. Technological advances led to control, surveillance, and growing inequality. Students face a dichotomy between state-of-the-art tech campuses and outdated public institutions. And we can kind of see already today how this could go into being. As education becomes more and more technological, it is possible that you have a bit of a split between different level of tier of organizations. And in this scenario, the main driver are that rapid digitization of society and education in general, linked with financial power imbalance, really led to this dichotomy between a type of organization. The race to efficiency shaped a bit the way we look at education, and the lagging regulation from the public sector allowed the first come, first served mindset, where if a powerful service comes institution the first, then it's very hard to change down the line when all the processes are centered around it. Another one, a bit more positive maybe, is a dynamic learning one, where in this one, education has undergone a radical transformation. Students are now participants in their own dynamic learning journey, supported by AI and teachers. Educational institutions serve as innovative hubs. You have lifelong learning, and they really act as a kind of knowledge and innovation hub for society. And in this scenario, you also have digitization, but then it's nudged towards more education-centered concerns, and the flexibilization and lifelong learning associated with strong collaboration and ties with the market helped keep public universities at the center of the societal space as a productive place to continue lifelong education and grow innovation partnership with the private sector. So the main point of the scenario, and there's a few more in the report, is really just to help us imagine possible futures and understand what key knobs do we have today to try and nudge things one way or the other for its evolution. That's one of my last slides. We just wanted to try and put together what we think is important to be in control in that discussion and be able to navigate those different scenarios. And the way we see it, there's four main elements. One is commitment from the sector itself. And it's not as obvious as it sounds, trying to really get the buy-in and leadership from institutions themselves, taking ownership about the process of education with technology as a servant. Associated to that, we have kind of co-creation. And the idea here again is to have then enough space for teachers, educators, like people working at education organization to drive the innovation on their own term, like understanding what the job means and trying to see how technology can bring you there. The value compass is the idea that in order to navigate this fast-moving, hype-driven space, it is important to have a few value that act a bit as a guide. And in the Netherlands, SURF has developed, and I forgot to put the link here, I'm sorry, but if you type SURF value compass for education, we have a report here that has been written in collaboration with education institutions of the Netherlands to agree on what core values are. And that really helps in future discussion where with maybe procurement, like vendors, on how you want to do innovation, because you can try to keep in mind how any of those decisions affect any of those values and try to make sure you keep the setting. And finally, I think a lot of the things need structural change, which means that even though maybe now we are almost past the ChatGPT peak, where we kind of start to understand how we can manage it and make something reasonable out of it, something else is going to come 6 months from now. And so we have to make sure that the way we organize ourselves is resilient and agile enough that we can build on top of this and be on that journey and not just stop after ChatGPT. So the title of the talk was the impact of AI on teaching and learning now and in the next 5 years. I'm sorry, I mostly had questions, not so many answers. But the key point for me is really like, okay, well, let's just be the ones who decided at least. So thank you for your attention.